Hi everyone! So today I wanted to talk about something that's been kind of on my mind and that I briefly mentioned in yesterday's book review video. And it's something I've been wanting to talk about for a little while. I think it's kind of an interesting topic. So what I wanted to talk about today was the idea of sort of a book's right to exist versus what it teaches people. I'm very much all for free speech and, you know, books and people to have the free expression to write and to say whatever they want. That being said, when it comes to romance novels specifically and their depictions of abusive, both emotionally and physically, and sexually in some cases, let's face it. When it comes to their depictions of romance, in some of them, sometimes when it comes to romance books' depictions of romance, I find myself struggling a little bit with that idea of a book's right to exist versus what it teaches people. So the point is, I think that the moment you start saying, you know, this is what should be going into a book, this is not okay to be in a book, or banning certain books, you start getting, well, Nazi Germany, right? You get book burnings, you get this book is not okay, and it's a slippery slope from there because you can start with something that maybe everybody is like, oh, that's an acceptable thing to sort of, you know, get out of a book, and it can slowly sort of trickle into everything. I think it's very important that authors have the opportunity to write the story they want and have it told in exactly the way they want it told, whether or not I personally agree with what is being said in the story. Now, where that goes from there in regards to romance novels is there is often a bit of an issue with the idea of romance novels depicting good relationships. I know I harp on Twilight, but you look at Edward and Bella's relationship, that is not a healthy or like okay relationship to be in. And I remember when Twilight was a thing, it was really big when I was in like elementary school. I remember tons of people being like, oh, I want Edward and Bella's relationship, they're so cute, you know, Edward's so dreamy, and none of that is okay. I was never fond of the books, but at the time I remember just kind of laughing that off, like, okay, whatever, because I was little, like, Thinking about it more as I grew up, it's kind of concerning, at least to me, that a book that was clearly depicting a very bad relationship was sort of propped up and held on a pedestal of like, this is what you want your romance to look like. This is the kind of thing you want in a guy, and that to me is really concerning. The trick becomes, do you say, well, that book's not appropriate, ergo shouldn't exist, no one should read it, and risk the slippery slope that banning books and censoring books turns into? Or do you say, okay, well, we can let this book exist? And I can kind of see both sides of the argument when it comes to that, because when I read a book that's like, okay, this is super abusive, like 50 Shades of Grey, for example, when you have a book like that that has all these people going, oh, this is what I want, and I'm not saying everybody who reads it has that, like, you know, oh, this is what I want, but my concern is that there's definitely people out there who look at that and go, yes, this is an ideal relationship, and that's really concerning. The book should be allowed to exist, and so this is sort of where this whole issue of books' right to exist versus what it's teaching people. I come down on the side of the book has every right to exist, but we also have every right to criticize the book. You know, one of my biggest fears, honestly, about having kids one day is that my daughter will read Twilight and go, that's the kind of guy I want. But at the same time, I'm not going to stop her from reading it because the book exists, and that's not fair to say, you know, you can't read this. What I think is to be able to sit down after the kid or whoever has read the book and say, like, do you understand why there are problems with this as a relationship? To be able to say, or to be able to take 50 Shades of Grey, and I've seen a ton of people do this, and I think it's really good, to be able to say, hey, here's this book that's super popular, and now we're going to criticize it. We're going to talk about everything that is wrong with the book, everything that is abusive or is very troubling. I think that's honestly the only way for the argument to sort of go forward, is actually to keep it like that. To be able to say, this book has a right to exist, but we have the right to criticize these books for their content. Because if you say, well, we don't have the right to criticize these books, then what's in the books could potentially be taken by somebody like a young child reading Twilight as something to aspire to. Whereas if you ban the book, once again, you get into censorship and the issue of free speech and stuff like that. Yeah, so this is something I just kind of really want to talk about because I think it's really important. I think it's really interesting. I know I've had moments where I'll read a book and be like, oh my god, this should not be on the shelves. I can't believe kids could read this. Like, I'm very troubled by this. And then I kind of have to stop and go, well, no, because the book has a right to exist. And the author has a right to write and to tell the story they want to tell without anybody else getting in the way or censoring them. So yeah, let me know if you want to engage with me on this, because I'm legitimately very, very curious what other people think about this. So thank you so much for watching the video. I know this was kind of, these rant videos are getting a little weird, but I'm enjoying them and it's fun, so I'm gonna keep doing them. But yeah, thank you so much. Alright.